Gen 5 DOD delete. First thing you want to do is clean your lifters with mineral spirits and let them soak in oil while you start assembling the engine. When installing your cam, you want to be sure and cover all of your cam lobes with assembly lube. I'm using the Driven assembly lube here. We switched to it a couple years ago from Lucas and we really like it. I like to take the old cam bolt and screw it in the end of the cam and use it as a handle to help me guide the cam in a little more steady. It's very important not to hit any cam bearings while you're installing the cam. Once you get your cam in, you're going to put your cam retainer plate on, and I like to put a little bit of blue Loctite on the cam retainer bolts. I'm not going to list all the torque specs, but you can find them on Summit Racing's website. Slide your lifters in your trays and then slide them down into the lifter bores, notch side down on the lifter trays. Next, we're going to take our DOD plugs and knock them down into the towers in the valley with our rubber mallet. And don't forget to put your cam follower in before you put your valley cover on. Now you can put you a new gasket on your valley cover, get that thing put back on there, and we can move on to the next step. These cam phasers are a pain in the ass, so I did have to have Tyler come help me with it. But you want the arrow on your cam phaser pointing down at 6 o'clock, the arrow on your crank gear pointing up at 12 o'clock, and that will put your cam dowel at 3 o'clock. The easiest way to install one of these oil pumps is to grab you an old crank gear, slide it in the oil pump, line it up with the Woodruff key on the crank, and that bad boy will slide right on there. Snug your bolts up, grab your torque wrench, torque it to spec, and let's put some cylinder heads on this thing. Put your dowel pins in your block and put your gasket on. Be sure where it says front, it is facing the front of the block. Then you're going to go ahead and put your cylinder head on, start putting your bolts in. The driver's side has one 13 mil hex head on the Gen 5s. And like I said, you can find the torque specs on Summit Racing and also the torque sequence for the cylinder heads. Before you put your cylinder head on, be sure and blow out the head bolt holes with compressed air. The last thing you want to do is hydrolock a bolt. All of the cylinder head bolts are a 15 except for that one 13 mil hex head. Now that we have the heads on and torqued down, we can move on to putting the push rods in and putting the rockers on. I run the bolt down by hand a little bit, and then I take my little 1/4 inch impact and I snug them up. You want to hold on to that rocker while you are snugging them up and make sure the tip of that rocker is centered with the tip of the valve. And then you're going to take your torque wrench and you're going to torque them to spec. I go over them all once, turn the engine over, load the springs that weren't loaded, torque them again, oil them up, and they're ready to go. To seal up the front cover, you're going to want to get a tube of AC Delco RTV, and you're going to want to run a bead of that along the inside of the bolt holes on the